That's not an easy situation. And the first thing I hear is something's happened. And as a parent, really what you need to do is try and get to the bottom. What I would say is the child is trying to make a stand, and you need to get under the stand and find out what happened that has triggered this fairly strong behaviour. Although it doesn't seem likely that it's a cry for help, it's always a cry for help. So really, the child is not trying to make your life difficult, they're trying to show you how difficult life is for them. So something's happened, has there been a separation in the family, something that has triggered this major change in behaviour. So I call it ask the W questions. You know, when did this happen? What happened? Where is it happening? At home, in school, anywhere else? But the most important question is, why is it happening? So really, when a child is behaving in that way, you know, I go back to saying, as a parent, you keep firm boundary and you just stay separate to that behaviour and recognise that that behaviour is all about the child and not about you at all. It's all about how he's feeling, all about what's going on for him. So what you need to do is try and connect into his world. And I think with teenagers at that age, a great way to do that is lifts in the car, because they're not good at the face-to-face communication across the table. So in a car, it's great. And that over time, by kind of investing in him, even though that seems like the absolute opposite to what you should be doing, he might open up and he might talk about the hurt that he's feeling, the disappointment he's feeling, how difficult things are for him. And what I'm really saying is that I think love works here. That, in other words, there's something happening for the boy, so don't break relationship with him over this behaviour. Instead, stay separate to the behaviour, and gradually, over time, the child will open up and you're going to find out and respond to the love that you're showing and come back, and you're going to get some indication of what it is that's happened for him. In other words, if you keep mirroring all the positive stuff, he'll gradually, over time, do that back. Essentially, for the 2-month-old and the 4-month-old, it's the same thing. The child can't get back to sleep. Now, the manner in which the baby falls asleep is the manner in which the baby wants to fall back to sleep when they wake up. So in other words, if the child has fallen asleep with you there, that's what they're looking for when they wake up. On the other hand, both of these babies are very, very young, and we know that no bedtime routine is established. There's no pattern really for 6 months. So there's an element of, it's not easy, I remember it myself, but that, and you know, you may have to go with it in the short term. But what you need to do, and it takes time to make this change, is you have to teach the child to self-soothe. You have to teach that child to fall asleep without needing your physical presence. And the only way to do that is to do it gradually, over time, and it can take a lot of time, unfortunately, many weeks, where you gradually, you know, move from maybe you were stroking the baby's head to soothe them, or I think in the case of the 2-month-old, the child is on the shoulder. You have to move and make some tiny separation little by little, and every time the child gets anxious, you have to go back to the previous one. So in other words, it's what we call a gradual phase withdrawal of your presence over time, that the child gradually stay secure that, okay, you're not actually physically stroking their head to soothe them to fall asleep, but you are there, and that you will come when they call. Right, couple of things there. What time is he getting up? You need to get him up earlier, because the earlier he gets up, so probably 7 is a good time to get up, the earlier he'll need to fall asleep. Secondly, is he getting much physical activity? Boys need a lot of physical activity. If he's getting the physical activity, if he's getting up at a reasonable hour, he really does need to be getting to bed at that time. There are children, and we said this before, that are night owls, and if that's the case, he can be in bed, but he can be listening to reading or listening to a story, you know, on a CD or whatever. But the things that help in order to establish a good bedtime routine are establishing a bedtime routine. So it's the things that we mentioned last week, which are, you know, a warm bath. The same pattern happens every week, so it's consistent, it's predictable, and it makes the child feel secure, because really a child's settling is all about security. So the whole idea that then the child, after they wash their teeth and go to the toilet, they come in, they get a story, they have a little bit of a chat, they have a little bit of a cuddle, and then the child is left maybe with the night light on or whatever. And at that stage, if a child has a nice, well-established bedtime routine over time, maybe he's a night owl and maybe he will stay in bed and read or whatever, but I would imagine things will improve, particularly if the physical activity has happened during the day and he's getting up, early enough. Well, I have a 12-year-old, so I suppose I can relate very much to this age. And this was said to me about one of my children a number of years ago, and I didn't understand at the time, but now I understand that it was absolutely correct. If your child is not cooperating with you, at some deep level for them, you're not cooperating with them as far as they're concerned. So you have to look at the possibility that is, from your child's point of view, you may not be cooperating with them. So what is it that you need to do? You need to find out what it is that your child needs and respond to that. Usually it's more time and more attention. Like the interview I had earlier with Mark, I had a parent who really didn't believe in any of this stuff and went away and said, I'll give it a week. And I would say to this parent 3 things. Maybe ignore the misbehaviour, instead catch the child being good, and spend daily time with the child on a one-on-one, undistracted time. And that what the child gets from that is a feeling of being loved and feeling secure. And then when you're cooperating with their need for you, because you are the parent and they're 100% dependent on you, the child hopefully then will respond back and begin to cooperate with you. Also talk to him. What's going on? I love you very much, but I can't accept that behaviour. Okay, I've got an 18-year-old, so let's face it, teenagers are difficult, so it's a lot of it is normal enough stuff. I think what we say is there's too many things to fight about, don't sweat the small stuff. Her bedroom is her bedroom, and however it is how it is. Certainly the rest of the house is a different thing, however. And what I would say is, this is what works for me. When I look at a child and I just see problems, my body language is communicating a lot of negative stuff, because 80% of what we communicate through our body. So if all I'm seeing there is a problem child, all I'm communicating is, you know what, you're really making my life difficult. So I would suggest instead rebuild your relationship with your daughter. Treat her with tremendous respect, which is odd considering she's not treating you that way. But again, gradually and over time, she will then reflect that back to you. Also, very clearly state your expectations. I expect before you head out that you just do something small to help out. The biggest change probably need to make with children is to move from what we call you messages to I messages. You messages is a daily diatribe of, you're always late, you always let me down, you never clean up, you. And how does that impact on the receiver? They're just working against you. You do not engage the cooperation. Move to I messages, which is to very, very clearly state, I love you, but this is what I need. I need you to help out at home, and I appreciate when you give a hand. And when they help at the very beginning, notice the tiny improvements, because if they get this positive reinforcement, they tend at any age to do more of it. So what I would suggest is also, the consequences. If you decide not to help out, you're deciding no PC time. I'll leave it up to you, you decide. No helping out, no screen time. They don't like it, but it works.